We're talking with Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. I do have a little bit to say about what we saw in Lincoln yesterday with one of the I don't have a better one of the better women's basketball crowds we've probably ever seen in this state, with Caitlyn Clark coming to town. Seemed like through 3 quarters she was destined to break that record, and then Nebraska happened in the 4th quarter. How, I guess, put into context for me how important and how big of a day that was for Amy Williams and her team.
Really important. It was, one of those moments that could change the trajectory of the program. We'll see. They play Ohio State Wednesday night, and that team might be better than Iowa. But we'll see. I think that was
the only other
really
team to beat Iowa, so you might be right. Right.
Really important game, though, to be able to send out to recruits and say, this is what we can do. I would say that, Nebraska's got good coaching. They need better players. And for much of yesterday, Iowa just had the best player on the floor. Everyone else, I think, was pretty evenly matched, to be honest with you. I think Nebraska's probably the better team if you take Caitlyn Clark out of it. But, for a lot of that game, Caitlyn dictated a lot of what was going on. And then in the 4th quarter, I don't know. They're never going to say, the coach, we didn't get a chance to talk to her. She was upset. I think they thought that their lead was safe. And I think that they thought, well, you know what, let's just go ahead and take this show back to Iowa City and break the record on Thursday. And they shouldn't have done that. I think they should have just went ahead and put the gas pedal down and finished the game. They got a little ponderous late. They kind of threw it around, and players are kind of looking at the shot, not sure if they're going to shoot it. And it just gave Nebraska enough room to make its run. And then I think Iowa got tight, and then they just started missing shots. And, so it was Nebraska. I think it was also Iowa really melted down and just didn't play well at the end. And on some level, that's as big of a deal to Nebraska fans as Nebraska winning. I think the feeling that people have about her, about Caitlyn Clark, about that team and that coach, it all kind of fit perfectly yesterday. It was a very meaningful way to have that game in, because for 3 quarters, that was let's be clear, that was Iowa City West.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Iowa fans were louder than the Nebraska fans. The Nebraska fans were kind of sitting there. They were kind of taking it, and it was pretty interesting. And then Nebraska kind of makes that run at the end, and so it was a big moment for Williams, and also a big moment for the program.
Sam, let me ask you something. Well, I got 2 things, so I'm going to try to be efficient here, which is not the DB way. I remember this is maybe a year ago, I was talking to Jessica Cootie, and we were talking about Jazz Shelley. And I said, and I've said this, I've talked about this reference before, but I'm a comic book guy, and I like this reluctant hero thing. I'm a big Daredevil guy. Like, reluctantly, he kind of defends, and he's the hero of like Hell's Kitchen. Jazz Shelley reminds me of Daredevil. She's like this. She could be a superstar, but it's not. It doesn't seem like it's in her nature. She's very other-centered. Sometimes I want her to shoot more or take more control of games. When you look at her response in crunch time, and yesterday wasn't the first time, it was just the most notable because it was the number 2 team in the country.
Yeah.
How many times do you look at her during the course of a game and say, hey, you know what? Like, you're capable of doing that more. I think you should. But it doesn't fit with kind of what she means to that team. Or does it?
No, that's a great point. And I think Amy Williams would say the same thing, that she wants Jazz to shoot more. And yeah, I think that's evident to people who have watched her for 3 years, that, when she goes to what's interesting is when she goes to play professional basketball, wherever it is, she's going to be a shooter. I don't anticipate she's going to be a point guard.
Mm-hmm.
So she better get used to it. So, I think she could shoot more, and she could probably score more. I do know that they have a huge emphasis on getting the ball to Alexis Markowski and getting paint touches for her. And so I think Jazz is
She was
focused on
so
that.
good on the glass late yesterday. That's going to fly under the radar. Markowski.
Yeah. Yeah, she plays very, very hard. So one of the things that I think, and I've written about this a couple weeks ago or something. Nebraska, I mean, Jazz kind of can blow by players, but she's not Caitlyn Clark. And so, like, what makes Caitlyn really good and will make her really good in the NBA, WNBA, is she actually can go by anybody. And so if you think that you're going to play her, going to the left and doing the 3-point thing, and you're going to overplay that, she'll score 35 at the rim. She's not afraid to do that. Jess can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something that she can do. And so, they have to work for shots a little bit more. And so I think there's a kind of like, hey, let's find the open shot instead of taking a slightly contested shot. The reality is that the game-winning shot was a contested 3, and Jess can make those quite often and probably needs to take them a little bit more often. She did on Sunday, and they won the game. I think they have a player coming who can get by almost anybody. I'm not going to call her Caitlyn Clark, but she can get by almost anyone in Britt Prince, and that will help because once you have somebody, kind of like
they do have some similarities. I don't think that's far fetched, Sam. I've watched Britt since she's been in the 6th grade.
Mm-hmm. They have some. And I think, I'll have a story comes out later about Nebraska doesn't want to put that on her. And I don't blame them for not wanting to because Britt personality-wise, not the same.
Yeah, I was going to say, you talk about a reluctant superstar, like that's definitely BP.
Right. But she can get by people, and that matters. You have to have players, especially, well, it's true in men's basketball too.
She's ambidextrous.
You got to have players who can get by everybody. And if you have that, then all of a sudden it changes everything else on the court. And that's the one thing that Iowa has that Ohio State has it too. People who watch that game on Wednesday night will see that Ohio State has 3 or 4 players who can do it. It's probably the thing that Creighton, which is probably a 5 or 6 seed, is kind of missing. They don't have that player who can get all the way to the rim with great consistency, and so they have to make shots, and Creighton often does, but they don't necessarily have somebody who can get to the cup over and over.
Sam, should I apologize for? Me, I'm the king of toxic masculinity, or maybe I should offset it and say I'm the queen of toxic masculinity. But for fear of wanting to keep this job for another day, the comps that I give for Clark are mostly male related, right? She shoots it better than LeBron and Magic, but she sees the floor equally as well. She's a great passer. She has the range of like a Steph Curry, but he doesn't have near as many assists per pass attempt. So like I find myself giving male references. I watched yesterday at PBA how all these little girls are rocking Iowa gear. Even a significant amount of people from Omaha, these little girls rocking Iowa gear. She's changing. She's doing like a Tiger Woods, kind of a Serena Williams thing where she has this young audience that is captivated by her. Is she just so good? I shouldn't apologize for the male comparisons, or do I need to be better? Because that's really all I can think of.
Well, I mean, I think there are female comparisons to make. For Diana Taurasi is one.
She's better than Taurasi, though.
Well, one of the challenges that we have is that Caitlyn plays for a team where she's better than everybody on the team. And Connecticut.
Although Martin and Stokey, they're pretty good. No, I'm kidding.
At UConn, that wasn't always the case.
Yeah.
You had players playing with each other who were equally good, and then you go to the WNBA and, different things happen. So I would say that Caitlyn Clark is the second best player I've ever – well, no, she's the best player that I've ever seen play against Nebraska. The best one was a gal by the name of Alyssa Thomas, who played for Maryland. I don't know, 12 years ago, and I think she's been a WNBA MVP or something like that. She was really good.
I knew Maryland. Yes, DP.
It doesn't not that many players come along that have some of the skill sets that Clark has, and I'm not sure that, and Amy Williams, who, if you're talking to her just one-on-one, can give you a really good rundown of why Caitlyn Clark's good. And it's not just like, oh, she's really good. I mean, she could talk for 4 minutes about it because she's had to scout her, for 100 hours. And so there are not many players who can do those things all equally well. And so it's reasonable when you see somebody who might be the best that we've ever seen to have those kinds of conversations. I think it's Jazz. I don't know is the biggest fan of Caitlyn Clark, and I don't blame her for that. She's the one player who could probably have the most insight because she played with Sabrina Ionescu for 2 years, and those are probably the two that you would compare. And maybe there'll be a moment where you can ask about that now that they've beaten Iowa. So, she's probably the one that has the best perspective on comparing those two. But no, Clark is, she's one of one. She's the one. And sometimes as a sports writer, people are very hesitant to say that because, well, let me go through my catalog of memories and equivocate. No, she's the best. She's the best that I've ever seen, and she's the best that I think there's ever been. And that's hard for people to say, but I think that'll bear out when she goes to the WNBA as well.
We're talking with Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, want to change gears on you here a little bit and ask about Tony White. Obviously, his name's been mentioned in connection with that UCLA job. What is your level of concern that Tony White ends up leaving for UCLA?
Moderate. I think it's going to come down to, I think that's a job that it's reasonable for Tony White to take. It's his alma mater. It's a Power 4 job. I think there are things about that job that if he really thinks about it are going to be hard for him to win there. I think hard for anybody to win there based on where they play, even though they play in the coolest stadium, the proximity of that to their training facilities, the continuing and relative difficulty to build a roster, how he would assemble a coaching staff, quickly. That would be a real rebuild because Chip Kelly Chip Kelly was doing it with fewer players than most people do. And he was kind of keeping it together with his own system. And that's a lot to expect Tony White to say, well, I'm going to be Chip Kelly. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, Chip Kelly's been a head coach for a long time. So now, if I were UCLA, I don't know that Tony White's first on my list, and that's not a knock on Tony. I think you have to really think about, okay, is there a current sitting head coach that we also like that would take this job? And I'll tell you what, if they had fired Chip Kelly 2 months ago, I think Jed Fish would be their head coach, the guy that's at Washington now. But Chip Kelly decided, no, and actually I'm going to get out in front of this, and I'm going to put it to you guys. And so I think UCLA's, a little bit, they tried to go get PJ Fleck. I guess that didn't work. And so I don't know. I mean, Tony White could get that job very quickly because I don't know how many coaches are going to want that job. Sitting head coaches are going to want that job, and I don't think Barry Odom would turn it down. I just don't know if Barry Odom, is a better pick than Tony White. I mean, Tony White at least knows every single person in Los Angeles. He can recruit to the school. Simultaneously, there's been some guys that could recruit to UCLA who were not successful there, and so you have to think long and hard about whether that's something that you really want to do. And I think he'd have a hard time turning it down. I just think it's a hard job to win at if you're a brand new head coach. He would need a lot of things to fall into place.
Sammy Mack. Now I know full disclosure. I know I'm privy to all the things that went into the USC defensive coordinator job. And so I'm coming at this from that angle, right? The 11.5 hour, the decision, the thought process. And I say all that to say, Sam, I almost wonder, and I'm not going to call him and see, but can a guy know too much? Do you think, can he be too, as my old boss, Jay Noddle, used to say, I'm going to handicap you with the facts. Can he know the shortcomings? Can he know what it's like to go against SC? Can he see where they're at? Can he see that it's a short turnaround to put its staff together? Can that offset going back home? Because it just seems like he's so calculated. Maybe I'm just talking myself into there's no way he'd be rushed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's entirely possible.
I don't know, right? I don't know.
There's flaws in every job. I mean, almost every job. And so, like, there's drawbacks to that job. At the same time, it's a Power 4 job, and it's probably paying $5 million. And so he'll have to make the assessment of, can I win here? Because if you can win there, then you get to stay there. And if you win there, then you can go somewhere else. But if you lose there, the next head coaching job, if you don't win at UCLA, is probably not as good of a job. Or it's a really bad situation. Like Carl Durrell, his second head coaching job was at Colorado, and he took over a mess. He took over a total disaster. So, this is one of those moments. And I think what Matt Rule would tell him is you need to put yourself in a position where the job that you take, their expectations align with their commitment. And does UCLA's expectations, does UCLA expect to win a Big Ten championship? They probably shouldn't. They should probably expect to win, 8 games. Obviously, Chip Kelly did not feel like the expectations aligned with the commitment. And as a result, he left. And so Tony White needs to make that decision. And then UCLA needs to decide they're okay with not hiring a sitting head coach. If I were UCLA, I think, looking at a sitting head coach that's been a head coach for a while is probably something I would consider.
Yeah, you got Len, you got Chadwell, you got Reese.
Chadwell's the White. One that when Sam was talking about a guy that could hold it together with a system, Chadwell's the guy whose name popped into my mind.
Sam, thoughts?
Sure. I mean, that's fine. If you want to hire an offense, you can do that. Again, it's a tricky job because it's not a Pac-12 job anymore.
Yep.
So you're not selling a kid on, playing up and down the coast. You're selling a kid on playing in the best league, and they'll say it's the best league in college football. I think the SEC is slightly better, but they'll just say, hey, this is the best league in college football. This is the training ground for the NFL, and so you have to recruit nationally. You're going to have to recruit a little bit more than just Southern California. Are you prepared to do it? All those things. That's the challenge.
That's Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Great stuff, Sam. As
Good stuff,
always,
Sam.
We will talk to you again next week.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
That's Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. DB.
It's a lot in there.
Lot in there. I want to get back to the Tony White stuff.
Okay.
Coming up. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We will have more of Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities.